Stuart.
Hi, is that Dec?
Yeah, hi, you right?
Yeah, top form, thank you.
Wealdstone, the club that you started with in your non-league journey. How often do you keep up with the club in terms of results and how they're doing on the pitch?
Well, as we get into the game, that's quite minimal, you know. But result-wise, I'm always looking at results of how they're doing. Obviously, I'm aware of how the season's going this year for them, definitely. And if I bump into people, they know I've got the connection with the club. You know, they keep me informed as well.
The top of the league. Is that something potentially, obviously in the conference, that was around the times when you used to play for the club in the 80s. So how great would it be to see them back in the conference?
Well, I've always seen the club as that standard of team. You know, over the years, obviously winning the trophy like they did after I left and doing well in Southern League Conference, all of those types of things. The club have been very strong. The fan base has been strong there over the years, no matter what division they've been. And I think, I know a lot of teams say this, and you've got to prove it, but I think they belong at a standard like that. They would benefit, and the league would benefit as well.
Wealdstone's one of the biggest non-league clubs in the area. Let's talk about you then and your career. We'll start and build our way up as we go. So obviously you're at your boyhood club QPR and unsuccessful with a trial, and you also rejected a move to Hull, signing for Wealdstone. What was your thinking as a 16-year-old behind that decision?
Well, firstly, I sort of just broke into, well, I wouldn't say I just broke. I was in the first team with Wealdstone, and the opportunity come from Hull for myself and John Watson to go up there on trial, basically. I was 17, he was 27, and the pair of us went up there. I think we spent 3 days at Hull. We played in a reserve game against Grimsby. He was outstanding in the game, I've got to say. He was fantastic, head and shoulders better than anything on the pitch. And at the end of the 3 days, we sat there and spoke to the manager who wanted to take us up there. I was even offered a job on the Humberside Council to carry on my electrical apprenticeship, you know, but it just seemed a very, very long way from home for me at the time. And bear in mind, they're only one division above Wealdstone, you know, they're in the 4th division as it was then, you know, so I just felt as though it wasn't for me in regards to where I was maybe, and turned it down at the time. And to be fair, I was fortunate that a few years later a move did turn out for me, but it just seemed a long way from home, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as well, just in terms of Hull, obviously in the division above, you're of course from the local area, from Wealdstone, and you know, you spent 5 years at Lower Mead. And how did that mould you into the player that you became?
Well, firstly, when you're vying your trade in the Southern League, as it was first off for me, and then the conference or the alliance called then, it was. I mean, bear in mind, I'm working a job, so I'm sort of got to be there working. You're training 2 days a week, so physically it's very demanding, to be honest with you. The travelling as well, because it was a nationwide league, so it wasn't confined to just the local area. So you might be jumping on a coach at 2 in the afternoon to get up to Scarborough or somewhere like that. So, and then you're back at work the next day at 7 in the morning. So you were sort of working, if you like. And on top of that, I in the Wealdstone's dressing room, I was the only player in the dressing room at the time that probably never really had a connection with a pro club. I was obviously as a 13-year-old at QPR, but most of the other players had been released from varying clubs, whether it be sort of, I don't know where, Orient, Mill, places like that. So they'd been in the league and were coming downwards. So I was going in the opposite direction. So it was big for me, and it toughened me up as well. You know, physically it's very demanding, very aggressive division to play in against these ex-pros. So, you know, I have a reputation maybe as being a strong tackling player in the pro game, but in non-league I was just one of many.
Because obviously back then non-league was a tough place to play, and that's what's moulded you into the player you've become. But You're talking about working while playing in a national league. You were an electrician at the time, I think. How difficult was it to mix playing for Woolstone and being an electrician?
It was tough physically. I mean, let alone the hours he was working. I mean, the next work's quite physical work as well, let alone, holding down a playing career as well, or getting going at it. I used to play goal in the West Fulham district, my mate's team on a Sunday as well. I used to play in goal, so as well as playing for Woolstone, I used to play under an assumed name on a Sunday morning in goal himself, just for a mess around. So I had plenty on from a physical point of view. It was tough, to be fair, but it was a great education, and to be around some of the pros that had been in the game. I've mentioned John Watson, who was the captain of the club at the time. Fantastic role models to a young player like myself.
Obviously, in your first season for Woolstone, you'd been playing in the youth and the reserves. What were your emotions like when you made your first team debut?
Well, for me, if I'm being quite honest with you, it wasn't because of the form I showed in the reserves and the youth team that probably got me a game in the first team. The thing that got me a game at the end of my first season was the fact that we had such a fixture backlog at the end of the season. It was like Saturday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and some of the senior pros couldn't take time off work. So that's where I got my opportunity. That it didn't make the team up. I was fortunate enough that, I managed to get in, do all right, and save the team, so it was really good for my part. And I think Alan Fogarty was the manager at the time, who showed a great deal of faith in me. And not long after, I sort of, maybe after about a year, I think Alan got the sack, and I remember him walking around the dressing room and shaking everyone's hand. And he come up to me, and I felt really sad that he was my first real manager that gave me a contract. First time I ever got paid for playing football was at Woolstone, and he looked at me and said, "You'll have a big future in the game," and little did I know at the time that might involve the journey I went on.
The faith that he gave to you was, and that luck as well with the fixture congestion, was that the first sort of luck that you had in your career at that age? Yeah,
it was, to be fair. I mean, as I say, I got in. I can honestly say I don't know how well or badly I did, but I managed to sort of semi-stay in the team. Once I got in, I think it was the back end of one year I made my debut. At the start of next year, I got in the team, started the season, and never really looked back.
The conference was formed the season after you were in the team in 1981. How did that experience playing every week in the conference make you stronger as an 18, 19-year-old?
Well, when you're going away, the powerhouse team at the time were Altrincham. Bear in mind, they had Alex Stepney in goal for them, and they had a varying load of players that had real strong league campaigns and league careers behind them before playing at places like, Scarborough, Altrincham, Worcester were big, Boston were big at the time, They were really tough games to go and play. So, unbeknown to yourself, you didn't train a great deal in those days. Obviously, just 2 days a week we used to train on the pitch. So the pitch wasn't in good nick. We used to just use the running track round the side. But what it done, it gave me a CV of somewhere in the region of 250 league matches and cup games to fall back on. And that was great experience. I work with young players now that at the age of 21, where I had 250 games under my belt, they might only have a handful of games this day and age,
Yeah, absolutely, and that's the sort of experience you get from playing in non-league. Obviously, you had a bunch of experience with Woolstone, obviously suffering relegation, obviously one of the biggest lows you'd have at the club, and how did that make you stronger?
Well, it's a real blow for us, getting relegated. I mean, we had it. It was tough times, really. I got to say, at the club, we had it all on when the alliance was formed, the conference was formed, and it was tough for us. We weren't one of the powerhouses in the league by any means. We were fighting relegation battles, to be fair, and constantly under halfway in the division. But the one good thing that it probably done let alone my sake, certainly the club's sake as well. They went out and got Alan Baxter as the manager and Brian Hall, the pair of them coming, and the effect they had on myself, the football club, the professionalism of the club, everything that went with it, they're incredible. I'm deeply indebted for Alan. You know, obviously he's passed away now and I went to his funeral, whatever, but the impact that he had on me as a young person, very immature young person, as a man and a footballer as well, was brilliant, really. And it was him that, you know, ended up selling me into the league and giving me the opportunity. And a lot of probably me getting my chance in the league was a lot of that was down to him, I've got to say, in specialism that he empowered on the players.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was going to lead on to Alan actually, and the development that he gave to you as a youngster. And of course, when you were with Alan, you won the Southern League Championship and the Southern League Cup, and were back in the conference. How did that success help strengthen your will to win?
Well, listen, he brought the mentality that he brought was a winning culture. You know, he'd been successful over his managerial career at other clubs. When he come through the door, I remember Robin Wainwright saying, "Oh, he's a madman, this fella." You know what I mean? He'd have us training 5 nights a week and that sort of thing. To be honest with you, he did bring a real air of professionalism to the club. He also brought some good players to the club as well, and obviously not just the double winning side of the Southern League, but on and beyond. When I was there, I think we finished third in the getting promoted. Third the following year, and we had a really strong season. On top of that, had decent runs in the trophy, and then beyond that, you know, when Brian Hall took over the team, they won the trophy as well, which was incredible. You know, that was a real golden period for the club.
You contributed to the Stones finishing third in the conference, and that was in your final season. When did you know Coventry were interested in signing you?
Strangely enough, I sort of come close to the England non-league team. That was always something people talked about, that I might get in that. That was a sort of target of mine, if you like. And I just missed out on breaking the cup for the squad of 18 or 22, whatever it was. Missed out on that. And then I had no idea that I went to Wimbledon in between my going to Hull and Coventry. I went to Wimbledon, I was injured, and Alan Baxter said, "Go to Wimbledon," and just coming back from injury, he said, "Have a day's training with them." And I went there, and Dave Bassett was in charge, and I think they wanted to pay $5,000 for me, and the club wanted $25,000, and they couldn't agree a fee, you know. And Dave was saying to me, "Tell them you want to leave and turn pro and come to Wimbledon." And obviously I couldn't do that at the time. It was down from a club-to-club situation, so there was an opportunity potentially that slipped past, and then we played a game away at Yeovil, and just as we were about to go on the pitch, it was Dennis Byatt turned around to me and said, "Bobby Gould's here from Coventry looking at you tonight," and that was the thing I knew about potentially Coventry being interested.
That's great stuff, and obviously you're a pioneer for non-league players to get into the pro game and in the first division. And there's many players in the current Millstone side that have dropped from Premier League clubs. What advice would you give to any of them wanting to get back in the pro game?
What I would say is this: never give up on your dreams. Be as professional as you possibly can. I mean, the one thing, looking back now, the one thing that probably over my 5 years at Millstone, I was very professional as a young lad, you know. I tried to sort of soak up all the information the coaches give me, and that professionalism as a youngster probably got me the opportunity to go to Coventry eventually, you know. And that was a real big one for me. And the game is battle hard on me. When I stepped into the Coventry dressing room, you know, whilst I was a little bit nervous, potentially would I be good enough or would I not? When the game started, I probably didn't show any of those nerves, and then, like that happens after 2 weeks being at Coventry, I was in the first team, you know, and never come out of it again.
Yeah, absolutely. You established yourself immediately into the Coventry side and for 2 seasons. But what was it like making that step up from the 5th tier to the top tier?
Well, it was a monstrous big step up, I've got to say. I was fortunate enough, if you like, at the time that Brent Council said to me they'd keep my job open if it didn't work out. So I always sort of had that to fall back on. I had a trade to fall back on as well. And that gave me almost a comfort blanket, if you like, and forward in a playing career as a professional footballer. And obviously I traded in the afternoon as well, set my own company up, and still sparking in the afternoons whilst being a pro. So I always had it in my mind, look, if this doesn't work out, I need to make sure I've got something there for me. But the step up, whilst looking back now, I handled it quite well. It was probably amazing that I did, to be honest with you. I went to Coventry, who didn't have a left back at the time, so I had no real competition in regard to getting in the team. Looking back now, all I had to do was play well enough in the reserves and to get a chance in the first team. And then once you get in the first team, I just have to make sure I played well enough to stay there. So I didn't have anyone to knock out of a position, if you like, and buy it for a left back role.
It was Bobby Gould who had your faith in you. And how much did that faith shape your career?
Well, listen, I think when you turn from being an electrician on the local council, when someone wants to sign you to turn professional, get paid to be a professional footballer, and in the top division in this country, you know, when I look back now and see how football's been to me over the years, whether it be as a player, as a coach, as a manager, whatever it may be, you know, there's no doubt about it. It was the biggest thing that ever changed my life. You know, that one decision that one manager takes a chance on a young kid that's playing five divisions below where his football team is playing. It's a massive call by him to find a non-league player. And, you know, for me, it was a life-changing thing, and I can't underestimate the impact of what it done for me.
You're one who's now been a manager and you're coaching. Would that ever be anything that you ruled out if you were at the top of the game and you were looking at non-league players to put in your team? Is that anything you'd rule out at all? No,
100%, because non-league players, and to be fair, when I got to Coventry, Trevor Peake had been at Nuneaton before, Regis had been non-league, there was a few players there that had been non-league, and you could tell that in their attitude. They had a real hunger and fire in their belly, these players, and to be honest with you, it was probably the one thing that stood me in good stead over time, you know, the fact that I did have that hunger and drive in my belly, and I certainly wouldn't be against signing players from the league. No, you know, because I know that they would take the opportunity and give it their best shot in regards to their mentality.
Fantastic, and you did take your opportunity when you signed for Nottingham Forest in 1985, over 400 appearances and captain on numerous occasions. What were your favourite moments in that 12-year spell at Forest?
Well, while I was there, obviously, recognition come along, which is always massive, you know, in my world. We got to a few cup finals. The standards, obviously, was another step up in standards in the team I was playing in, and it was a club that I stayed for 12 years. That had a real impact on me as a football club, and probably the club that I get associated with the most out of all the ones I played for.
Brian Clough was the manager that signed you. How did it feel when you got the call from such a legendary manager while at Coventry?
Well, in all honesty, I probably signed for Brian Clough rather than Nottingham Forest, if I'm being honest with you, at the time. I mean, I used to, as a child, him on television, and he was absolutely sensational. He used to hang on his every word when he was commentating on telly and being a pundit. And the opportunity to go and play for Nottingham Forest, who 5 years previous to that had been back-to-back European Cup winners, you know, quite incredible. Everything that he created at the club and him as a personality was too good to turn down.
Yeah, how do you feel as well that you were part of his legacy at Forest?
It's like everything, you know, he was Nottingham Forest. He's probably one of the biggest characters the world of football's ever seen. And to have the opportunity, I worked for him for 8 years and captained his team for 7 of them days. It was a massive honour, I must say, you know, and I'm very fortunate now. I even look back and think what an education that was to work with someone like him, his character. And yeah, I remember like it was yesterday when he used to stand on the side of the pitch, and he just used to put, if you've done something well, he just get your attention and just put his thumb up to you. And it made you feel 10 feet tall, you know, you had that strength of character. It's incredible.
For a young player, that must mean everything to have that from a manager. But while at Forest, you won 78 caps for England and got your many caps started at Forest. During Italia 90, deployed as an attacking fullback. What was it like adapting to that different playing style?
Well, the step up, I've got to say, was quite daunting, you know, into the England money. I was unsure whether I'd be good enough to step up from a league player to an international player. As with individuals, you had to play alongside and against times, you know. But in regards to an honour, I mean, to play for your country is the highest accolade you could possibly have, you know. So for me, it was wonderful. Bear in mind, I probably got my first England cap only 4 years after I left Wealdstone. So it happened quite quickly in many ways. It happens quicker now, obviously, but in those days, that was quite a big meteoric rise.
And even with that, you made it to the semi-finals, part of the team in Italian 90, losing on penalties to West Germany, of course. What did that day teach you as a player and as a person?
Well, firstly, as a player, I think that was the forerunner, that tournament, and how that was perceived back in England, probably the forerunner for the Premier League in many ways. You know, I think that my sort of national sort of recognition grew a little bit from that, if you like. You know, prior to that, I was probably known in the Wealdstone, Coventry and Nottingham area, but after that, it was more of a nationwide knowing, and the forerunner of football, Premier League, and the growth of football, I think, you know. But for me, that tournament probably proved that I could handle it on the big stage as an international footballer, proved to myself.
After that, just before Euro 96 even, Terry Venables became the England manager. And how did that same drive you had at Wealdstone and Coventry and Nottingham Forest push you back into the team after being dropped?
Well, for me, it was the older I got, the more you realise the next game might well be your last game. So I think you almost enjoyed every game that little bit more. Yes, there was pressure on you because you knew as a player in his mid-30s, if you like, that people are going to judge you, whether they think your legs are gone, that type of thing. But for me, it was, you know, every game you sort of enjoyed it that little bit more. I think when I World Cup in 1990, it sort of come and went really quickly, and I didn't know what to expect. It was my first major tournament. By the time Terry took the team over, and Euro 96 was my third tournament, you understand exactly the implications of tournaments in our own country.
Absolutely, and you spoke about Italia 90 and how it pioneered for the Premier League. But in terms of Euro 96 hosting a European competition, how important was that tournament for English football today?
Well, rolling the clock back to 96 and the lead up to that, there was a lot said about can England host a major tournament? You know, would there be crowd trouble? All of those things were levelled against football and against England, basically. And the main thing that come out of it, I think, well, there was a love of the national team, I think, and a pride in the national team, which was good to see. On top of that, the country itself proved that it could put a major tournament on, and you look, maybe that was the forerunner for the Olympic Games a few years later and all of those type of things. But I think we come out of it as a country galvanised in many ways. The football team galvanised the country, and the country proved, look, we can put a major tournament on logistically that the rest of the world will trust us. And we've seen the Champions League come to Wembley on a couple of occasions, and the Olympics come to this country. And I don't think the world would worry about bringing sort of Commonwealth Games and Olympic Games and World Cups here in the future.
Swiftly move on to Newcastle. Obviously, you joined them in 1997. You played in the Champions League, scored in the Champions League for Newcastle. What was it like to play for such a famous club with an experienced squad around you?
I walked in a dressing room and there was the likes of Shearer, Ferdinand, Beardsley, Esprilla, to name but a couple, you know. It's a really experienced dressing room. It's almost like walking into an international fold, really. And it was almost a step up. Forest was brilliant for me, but the time was right for me to leave Forest. You know, I'd managed them for a short period before I left. I needed a new challenge, if I'm being honest with you. I was 35 at the time. If I'd have stayed at Forest, my career would have ended a couple of years prior to when it actually did. And that new challenge spurred me on at a club that's a massive club, you know, it really was an exciting time for the club. They finished second in the league the year before. A couple of years I was there, we got the FA Cup final and Champions League football, so it's all new to me, that.
Newcastle, well, at the time, one of the biggest clubs in the UK and still is to this day. But you did move to West Ham just before the turn of the millennium, and you won the Intertoto Cup. What were your emotions when you won European silverware?
I mean, for me, it was, I'd have probably stayed at Newcastle if I had a future at Newcastle, but it was made clear that I had no future there, and it was strange after getting the opportunity. I had a phone call the week before the season was due to start from Harry Redknapp saying he's done a deal with the chairman and that and sign us. I'll see you on Monday, you'll be playing next Saturday. It was a real big one for me, and went down and they had a really good squad of lads, and they had a squad of really good, talented youngsters as well. When you Joe Cole, Lampard, Ferdinand, Carrick, Defoe was in the youth team coming through. So some real talented youngsters alongside the likes of Buchanan and Trevor Sinclair. So it's a really good squad to go to. And after a couple of weeks, I was back in the England fold, age of 37. So it's a real incredible turnaround in my career at the time.
You mentioned there Harry Redknapp, the manager that brought you in at Upton Park. How supportive was he as a manager?
Well, he's brilliant. I mean, we had a few conversations through the summer, and he said to me, look, we're trying to get the deal done. I spoke personally with about 3 or 4 Premier League clubs about going to them, trying to get myself sorted out. Harry was the only one out of all the clubs I rung that eventually come round and said, yeah, you know, we'll take a chance on you. I was a free transfer, and I sort of repaid his loyalty over the 2 seasons. It was brilliant to work for.
You then moved on to Manchester City for your final season, and then going on as a manager for them. And you have a strong bond with Manchester City. How have you assessed their historic rise in the last few seasons in the Premier League?
Well, it's been underpinned by the finances, obviously. That's all there for all to see. But I think there's been a real sensibility about how the club have grown, how they put the infrastructure in place, the training facility, putting finance in the local area as well. And I think, you know, criticism comes of owners that put a lot of money in and it's almost boom and bust. But with Manchester City, you've got a feeling that there's a long-term project there that's going to benefit the community and the club. And to be fair, they've got a wonderful manager in charge at the moment, and it's growing year on year, Manchester City, and the product of football's fantastic. And to be honest with you, you know, it was a big club in waiting, if you like, and it's just grown immensely since the new ownership has come in.
You were managing at the time with Manchester City, and do you assess how great it was as an achievement to be managing against the likes of Sir Alex Ferguson, Arsene Wenger, you know, legends of the Premier League at their time?
Yeah, it was a great test for me, to be fair. I mean, going in there, I was fortunate. I had a wonderful sort of role model working under Kevin Keegan and Arthur Cox when I was there as a player, then a coach. They helped me immensely, I've got to say, in regards, even little things like Kevin used to take me into board meetings. I used to sit with the CEO in the afternoon to learn my trade as an up-and-coming manager, and never thinking I would take over at City, and then managed to get the opportunity. The chairman was very good and very supportive of me at the time as well. I was fortunate enough to have 2 and a bit years at City, and it's a big club for your first main job, really, but it was a good learning curve for me. You
went on to manage the England under-21s, and it was a bit of a mix with England and Manchester City. Was that, I guess, similar to your times playing and being an electrician? Do you see similarities between those two? Yeah,
I just saw, to be honest with you, I was offered the under-21 job on a part-time basis, and the club were none too happy about me doing both jobs. But before they had a chance to turn it down, I agreed to do both. So I just saw it as a benefit, for myself in regards to manage on the international stage, and on top of that as well, to work with some of the best young talented players in England had to be a benefit for me as Manchester City manager. I saw it right across the board as a win-win, both for the club and for myself. You know, I was fortunate enough, well, I wouldn't say fortunate, I was fortunate enough to have a job with the under-21s or work with them for that first part of their evolution. And Manchester City had new ownership a couple of months later, and I ended up losing my job there because they wanted to go down a different direction. So I was fortunate to have the under-21 job to fall back on and take it as a permanent role.
Of course, you were the under-21s and Fabio Capello's backroom staff for the senior team as well. You were speaking about the honour it was to play for England, but being a manager or being part of a coaching staff, is that a different type of honour?
Yeah, definitely. I think you've only got to look, and when I look, I'm fortunate to look back now, and I've had experience on many sides, you know, from working on the media at major tournaments, you know, to be a coach, a player, you know, a manager of international teams. So, you know, when I do sit there now and give an opinion on something, it's an opinion based on fact and based being on the ground and done the jobs in the main. But I think every time you have the opportunity to, my office at Wembley and then at St George's Park, it was a great honour to be part of St George's Park being built, going to the new Wembley Stadium, having the office there, and you're representing your country really, and it's an honour.
Once your duties were done with England, how much of an honour was that as well to be chosen to be the Great Britain manager?
The Olympics probably I put down as my most enjoyable managerial post. You know, it was a job where all the home countries had to be galvanised. You're trying to sell the dream to players that probably weren't sure what a football team in the Olympics would look like. And the 6 weeks we had together was absolutely outstanding, I've got to say. You know, the showcase football in the Olympic Games was bigger than probably a World Cup that I played in, I've got to say. So it was an incredible tournament to be part of, and you're just showcasing your small fraction of the percentage, which is football, in a global, well, probably the biggest global event there is, the Olympic Games. Throw into the mix, it was in London as well, you know, it was quite incredible.
And you got to manage some great players, Ryan Giggs, of course, who is a legend in his own right, but also youngsters like Daniel Sturridge, Aaron Ramsey. Did you feel like you helped their development at all while you had your opportunity with them?
I think every time you're a manager or a coach of any players, you hope that you can impart some sort of wisdom and give them an experience that's enjoyable, you know, when they're with you and in your care. So it's probably best to ask them in respect to that, but certainly they're a real credit to work with, and the sort of, you know, 6 weeks or so we had together from the training camp leading into the games, and bear in mind our lead up was so much smaller than other teams. I think we had 2 friendlies, one against Brazil, one against Mexico, leading into the Olympics, and the South Koreans beat in the quarter-final at 32 games for 3 years leading into the Olympics. So shows the difference and probably how other countries around the world took it a little bit more professionally than Britain did at the time. And I think we missed the trick a little bit there, but hopefully all the 18 players in the squad certainly benefited experience-wise. And when you look at the likes of Ryan Giggs has not been to a major tournament before as a player. That's the first and only major tournament he's been to.
Absolutely, and of course you speak there about sort of the preparations for the Great Britain team there, and it was slightly different to, I guess, the standard for English football anyway. Is that anything that, you know, that can be improved later down if we ever went into the Olympics again?
Without a doubt. I mean, it was, and I think people realise it now, the importance of the pitch, you know. They didn't realise it at the time, the players didn't realise it. As soon as they walked through the door, sort of day one, the kit out at Loughborough University, it was professionalism meets amateurism, if you like, with the Olympic Games. And, you know, just to rub shoulders with the likes of Usain Bolt, players used to sit in the dinner hall and be alongside varying athletes from all around the world, power lifters, you name it. And it was a great eye-opener for our players as well, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And did it take much at all to adapt? How much did you have to adapt to playing such a small pool of teams?
It was very, very difficult in some ways. I think, I was used to working with the under-21s where we had a squad of 22 and probably 22, 26 backup staff, allowed 18 players. The backup staff, we were limited to 6, and that was it. Anyone had, there was no preference for the home nation in any way, shape or form. Myself being one of them, a goalkeeper coach the other, a secretary being another. So on top of that, we had to be really minimal with our coaching staff and very selective. So made it really difficult. We didn't have any masseurs with us. So it's really tough to manage the expectations of the players in many ways. The fact that each player only had 2 tickets per game, no more than that. They weren't allowed anymore. They had no access to the lounge with their families. All of those things were alien to the players.
With it being alien to them, they would also have to adapt, which obviously we had to end up doing. After the time you spent with England, you went to Nottingham Forest for a brief managerial spell. What was it that motivated you to go back, even though when you said earlier about having a different challenge? Was that a big challenge for you to go back as a manager?
It wasn't. I had such a good time as a player at the club, and I have such a deep affection with the fans at Forest. That will never be diminished. I don't think, no matter what, whether I went back and managed and for a period of time or didn't. So to me it was a no-brainer to go back there and to work with the squad. And not me in subsequently, do I wish I'd never come back? And I categorically say no. I'm delighted I had a period back there as a manager. I thought it was fantastic, and for me the only shame was I couldn't spend more time there. I think if I'd have done so, I'd have had more of an influence on the club. It certainly needed someone like myself at the time to galvanise the club.
You finished at Forest. You went to West Ham for some as an assistant manager to David Moyes. Obviously now you're at Portsmouth as well as a coach. Is it at the moment just all about learning, and is that just how important it is to just keep learning?
I think so. I think you have to do that in life anyway. I've got a real spectrum of stuff that I do at the moment. Obviously, I work a lot in the media. I'm at games every Saturday and midweek for TalkSport. I do a lot of leadership and motivational speaking. But working on the grass is all part of that as well, and to keep current and keep working with players I really enjoy. So I don't want to turn around ever, I don't think, and say to myself, look, I'm just this, I'm just a manager, or I'm just a coach, or a media pundit, or whatever, I like to do the whole spectrum, and I think having such a varied sort of week at any given time is quite enjoyable.
Being, obviously, an electrician while being a footballer, that's has that been your motivation to sort of be now, like, I'm not quite only a manager, I want to work in the media as well and be a bit versatile?
I've not got an ego. I've been in the game a long, long time. I've entrenched in probably my non-league background has shaped my personality in many ways. So I've got no ego that I can't step in. You get some people potentially that might say, look, I'm solely a manager, or I'm solely this, and they see certain jobs beneath them. I never have done. I've always sort of been a very good team player in any environment I've been thrown into, So my non-league background has certainly got to take a lot of credit for that in shaping me and shaping my mentality as being probably, very level-headed, feet firmly on the floor. Finally,
we'll end it on this last question. What is next for Stuart Pearce?
Well, at this moment in time, I want to grow my leadership and motivational work and grow my company in regards to doing that. And we talked about a multitude of topics over this period of time, from non-league player to electrician to you name it, right the way through to management to coaching, a multitude of different jobs, and all of that helped me deliver, messages to companies. So I want to grow that. I want to keep current as a coach and as a manager still, to see if opportunities come up. I want to be able to turn around and say, look, have a look at my CV, it's comparable with anybody else, hopefully. And, you've always looking to help others as well. I've been asked on a couple of occasions to do some mentoring stuff, and I do some mentoring with young coaches that are just starting out now and to try and help others in the game that want to go on and progress. A multitude of things.
Great stuff. Thank you for your time, Stuart. Honestly, an incredible interview. And thank you for your time, and hopefully we'll see more of you soon.
I did promise I would do it for you, Dec, and I'm the man of my word. Well done with the questions as well. Very good. You've done your homework.